रति सुख सारे गतमभिसारे रति सुख सारे गतमभिसारे मदन मनोहर वेशम्
वंदे वृंदावनचरं वल्लवी जनवल्लभं जयंती संभवन्धाम वैजयंती विभूषणम् वाचं निजांक रसिकां प्रसमीक्षमाणः वक्त्रारविंद विनिवेशित पांचजन्यः वर्णत्रिकोणरुचिरे वरपुंडरीके बद्धासनो जयति वल्लभ चक्रवर्ती आम्नाय गंधरुदित स्फुरितादरोष्ठम् आत्स्ला विलेक्षण मनुक्षत मंदहासं गोपालडिंब वपुषं कुहना जनन्याः प्राणस्य नंदनमवैमि परं पुमांसम्. We have had the opportunity to critically analyze some of the leading characters of Rāmāyana and Itihasa. We have also had the opportunity to critically analyze some of the leading, very influential characters of Sri Mahābhārata. And in the Purānās, we were briefly able to discuss the salient features of some of the incarnations of the Lord, the Almighty. That of the Matsya, the Kurma, Varaha, Nrisimha, Vamana, Parashurama, Balarama, and other incarnations which are less known, like Kapila, Vyasa, Hamsa, Hayagriva, so on and so forth. But this avatara that we are going to experience and discuss now is an avatara that has managed to impress upon every philosopher, every theologist, every poet, every dramatist. The descriptions that lead to this avatara, this incarnation, as found in Mahābhārata, Vishnu Purana, Bhagavata Mahapurana, and other allied literature, is simply marvelous. This avatara is that of Krishna avatara. Krishna signifies one who is dark, black. But contrary to what the word means, this avatara has a lot of light that it throws on us. Krishna avatara very well begins with Vasudeva, who is married to Devaki. He had many other wives, of course, and she, along with her husband, was escorted by her brother called Kamsa. When Kamsa realizes that from an ethereal voice, an Ashariri Vakya that tells that the eighth child, the eighth fetus, will be the cause of the death of him, he wants to kill his very own sister. That's when the father pleads, Vasudeva pleads and says that we will be a good couple, and whatever children, whoever is born to us, we will give them to you. So this is how the story begins. But what do we need to understand as morals and lessons for our understanding here? Krishna avatara signifies the potency, the complete strength which is unimaginable to us when the Lord is born as Krishna. The qualities that he exhibits during his avatara period is simply marvelous. Let's take for this very example, Rama was also born to Kaushalya, but it was very normal. But here, this was not under normal circumstances. Here we had Devaki and Vasudeva, the couple, who were languishing in the jail of Madhura. It's Madhura, not Mathura. It's Madhu. Madhu means honey like. So in Madhura jail, they were languishing, and Kamsa was tormenting them. All the children born to her were killed. The seventh was shifted to the surrogate mother, who is Rohini. And here, while she was carrying the eighth child, her experiences of carrying the Almighty within her was inexplicable. It is said that she felt as if she was flying while she was walking, and while she was sleeping on the floor, she felt the floor was slippery in nature. Our acharyas indicate that understanding that the Almighty is within her, Garuda, the vehicle, became invisible and became her vehicle because she was carrying the Lord. That's why she felt like flying. And Adisesha, the serpent couch, became the invisible bed while she was sleeping on the floor, so she felt it slithery. So, well, these could be descriptions, but what we need to understand is Krishna Avatara breaks away every possible tradition or our understanding. Because when the Lord was born, he was born with 4 hands. See, if there is an incarnation of a fish, a kurma, a varaha, all that, they are all complete animals. And Nrsimha Avatara can at least be accepted because it was a sudden spurt, and then the Almighty is all powerful. So he had to optimize the boons that were bestowed upon Hiranyakashipu. Here he is a normal human being like Rama, but here he is born with 4 hands to tell that I am extraordinary. Tamadbhutam balakam ambujekshanam chaturbhujam shankagadaryudharyudam srivatsalakshmam gadashobhikaustubam pitambaram sandrapayodi saubhagam maharha vaidurya kirita kundala tvisha parishvakta sahastra kuntalam uddhamakanchi gadakankanadibir virochamanam vasudeva maikshata. So Vasudeva was able to see right in front of his eyes an extraordinary child. So right since his birth, Krishna has managed to awe his audience, and never has he kept the attention span weak. Here, his birthday, the day he was born, is again so special. In Sanskrit, we call it Jayanti. So Jayanti is a word that doesn't denote any other day or anybody else's birthday, because it is a certain month, it is a certain star, the asterism of Rohini, it is a certain tithi, that day should be the 8th day. Tithi should be, it should be an Ashtami. So when all the tithi, the nakshatra, the month, all of them come together, there is a stipulated hour, and that period is called Jayanti. So even his birthday has some speciality. And Krishna Avatara, to a large extent, determines that life and its happenings are absolutely uncertain and temporary in nature. He was born in a jail. He couldn't even feed on his mother's milk, and the very minute he was shifted for safety to a neighboring village, that was Gokulam. So he couldn't even stay with his parents. So that was temporary. Staying with his parents was temporary. He had to go to the custody of Yashoda and Nandagopala. And then when things were getting worse in Madhura, he was brought back. And that is where again he shifts, he calls them the parents. So this avatara proves how uncertain it is. I was telling about extraordinary things. We have noticed that water, basic science, right? Water, which is H2O, flows from a higher level to a lower level. That's why you go to a waterfall. So when water falls, it always falls from a higher level to a lower level. When we live in apartments and houses and condominiums, we have seen that water reaches our washroom or kitchen, but that water which comes from the below doesn't get a natural flow. We'll have to artificially using a motor tried to pump the water up to the tank and then bring it. So there is some amount of human intervention required. Naturally, water flows from higher level to lower level. So waters which rise from a source in a mountain, they flow as a river and then reach the ocean. Akashat patitam toyam sagaram yatha gacchati. Here we have in Krishna Avatara where, to give way to Vasudeva, who was carrying his son on his head for custody, the waters of Yamuna started tracing their way back to their source. So they started going in the reverse direction. Isn't this against the law of nature? Yes. Have you seen it? No. How do you believe it? Because it's written. Should we believe it because it's written? This is not a question of belief, but what we need to understand is there is a science, there are rules of nature, and there is, in the believing circle, there is a belief that all of it has been controlled by the divine will of the Almighty, and if He chooses, anything can happen. So Krishna Avatara signifies this. There is also another incident that describes the empowerment that He gave to women. Let's take, for example, a girl baby was born to Yashoda. The babies were swapped. There was no need for it. Krishna could have still lived with Yashoda like how the girl baby lived. But she was taken away, and she was meant to be the shield to Krishna. Here is a woman who's protecting the man. So this general belief that women are weak, women are physically less privileged than men, is that theory or that misconception is completely wiped away, because it is Krishna who's protected by his sister. So his sister protects him, the woman protects him. And this gratitude to that sister continues so much so that even Rukmini, who at a later stage wants to marry Krishna, seeks her intervention. She prays to Girija, to the sister of Krishna, to get her, Rukmini, married to Krishna. So right from his birth till his marriage, here is a woman who has been with him. Krishna's stay in Gokula, which is often described in many chapters in Bhagavatam, less than the age of 12 is where he spent an entire Gokulam, Vrindavanam and Govardhanam. So this stage of Krishna is absolutely engrossed in childhood and boyhood activities. So he was engaged in stealing butter. Of course, why should he steal butter? Will Almighty come and steal butter? Because he wanted to showcase every possible mischief in this world. And philosophically speaking, a lot of the commentators say he didn't steal butter. How come? He did steal. That's what the next door lady says. The philosophers ask, where did this butter come from? Oh, we got it churned from the curds and the milk. Where did the curds come from? Milk. Where did the milk come from? We got it from the cows. Where did the cows come from? Their mothers. Is there a cause to it? Yes, the Almighty. So the Almighty is the cause ultimately for everything and anything that you see around. So the butter that belongs to the Almighty was taken away by the Almighty in his incarnation as Krishna. So what is this? Is this stealing? Is what they support. But when we read that as a normal reader, when we analyze this as a reader, we may have doubts as to, is this an approved act? But as a child, we are prone to our own mischiefs, and trust me, our parents, our grandparents have relished it. Only when that mischief continues at a stage when we become an adolescent or then we become a householder is where the society has problems. Krishna Avatara continues this way. Now, there are very tricky incidents in Krishna Avatara that have a philosophical bent as well. One is when a demoness called Purana comes. Putana Balaghatini. She was specialized in killing newborn babies, because Kamsa was the opinion that the child that was born to kill him was born. So the one whom he thought was a child was the girl baby who flashed into the sky with 8 hands and so many weapons and threatened him and said, "Why? How can you even kill me or touch me? Kamsa, you are living in your own foolish world. Know that the one who is going to kill you is already born comfortably elsewhere." So this elsewhere created a lot of problems. That's when he dispatches Putana, and Putana manages to kill every possible child that she sees. That's when she picks up Krishna, assuming he is also one of the children that needs to be killed, and she smears her bosom with a virulent poison, and the child, in the quest for getting his thirst satiated, sucks, takes the poison, then takes the milk, and then manages to kill her. Now, here is one point. If she, as a demoness, wanted to kill the newborn babies, here is Krishna whom she picked up, and most accounts mention that as the baby tried to suckle, and he took away the poison, and then he could taste the milk that she secreted as well, which is slightly or logically untenable, because she hadn't delivered a child then. So how will milk get secreted of her? So that's when people say, we need to understand, though this has been mentioned in its own fashion, in the exaggerated literature, poetic fashion, we need to understand the science behind it. There is a condition called galactoria, where women at a certain stage, when stimulated, will be able to secrete milk. So she could have secreted milk that way, and as he managed to suckle further, that's when it is said that the Jivatma, which is housed in all of us, that keeps us going, was also pulled out of her body, and that's when she lost her life. Now, the philosophers opine that here Krishna, who managed to drink or consume the milk that she had secreted and later kill her, we keep listening to this. For example, you are listening to this incident that I am speaking of, Krishna killing Putana, or you are attending a public discourse or a digital, an online discourse, where the narrator tries to narrate this incident where Krishna is drinking milk from Putana. Imagine that the person has a heart attack and dies that very minute. Possible, right? We don't know when things will turn nasty. We don't know what is written for us or what we are ordained for. So as the person is listening, the person dies. What will happen to the Jivatma when it departs from that body? Here is a theory that Krishna later gives in Bhagavad Gita. He says, "Hey Arjuna, if the Jivatma that departs from the body has to seek another birth, because it's the process of the Jivatma exiting one material body and going into the other. So it's a shift of Jivatma body after body. So this shift, that entry to another body is birth, the exit from the current body is death. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. So in such a scenario, how would you see the birth or death of an individual? That's where Krishna says, when in the body the Jivatma exists and that mind thinks, while I am thinking of a certain incident or somebody, and at that point in time my Jivatma departs, he introduces the theory of Tatkratu Nyayam, where he says that whatever I have been thinking of when the Jivatma exited the body, I will be born as that. Suppose I am thinking of my pet dog, and at that point in time, as I keep worrying about her or thinking about her, my Jivatma departs. The next Janma, Krishna says, could be that of a dog. So what we have thought in the last minute matters a lot. Though we may say it is not in our hands, it matters a lot. So imagine that there is a narration of Krishna having drunk milk, consumed milk from Putana. Krishna having consumed milk from Putana is being heard and the person is dead. Then, as per this rule, he must also be born of another woman and he must be drinking milk, which means he will have another birth. But this particular incident is so strong enough, a lot of philosophers opine, that suggests that the person will never have another birth. So even if the rule suggests that if you hear Krishna drinking milk from Putana and you die, you will have another birth, but this incident will be an exception because Krishna is extraordinary. Even listening to his pastimes will ensure that you will not have another birth. So to give this kind of a confidence in the reader, the philosophers pick and choose incidents. As Krishna grew, he was able to annihilate a lot of demons, and a lot of demons came. There was a Trinavarta, there was Kapithasura, there was Vatsasura, there was Keshi, there was Pralambha, and so on. So all of them were vanquished in their very own way. Now Krishna, on the other hand, the valor that he shows, the wrath that he shows, the anger that he shows in vanquishing those demons, at the same time the love that he showers on his friends, immaterial of whether they are men or women, is stellar. So one incident that we come across in Krishna's life is his relationship with the Gopika Stris, the women in Gokulam who later shifted to Vrindavanam. So to the entire women folk of Gopikas, his relationship, Krishna's relationship, has been worshipped as well as questioned. Imagine we asking our parents, well, I'm going to go with my friends, my girlfriends out. So my parents ask, why should you go? No, Krishna had girlfriends, so do I, so what's wrong? At a superficial level, it seems perfectly right, because if my parents worship Krishna and everything what he did, then they should allow me also to do the same. Yes, but Krishna's action in a particular incident called a Rasa Krida, you might have come across this, you might have seen beautiful paintings in various art forms, Madhubani, Pattachitra and Kalamkari. These are all arts of painting that exhibit this dance, where there is a Krishna standing in the center, and it is believed he took many forms and he was dancing with other women in circles. So this is called a Rasa Krida. So there were concentric circles going, and this is called Rasa Krida. So if I dance with my girls, my girlfriends, my parents question me, if Krishna dances, why not? First of all, we need to understand that religion, especially Hindu religion, the Indian civilization, has never ever checked on the man and the woman from being friends. We have never had this concept of men can never be friends with women. No. We have in fact been a very, very magnanimous, generous, liberal and an open society. Of course, we had some rules of relationship, that you're married to this man, you're married to this woman, live, give confidence into each other and live. Yes, we do have that penetration of thought, but when it comes to overall friendship, we have never been against. So to create an aura that Hinduism is against women talking to men or men talking to women is wrong. So if that is the argument, then it doesn't hold water. And second, how could Krishna dance with so many women? Isn't that unethical? First of all, by 10 or 11 years of age, he was out of the entire Gopika Stri's clutches, and because he had to go and fight his uncle Kamsa, relieve his parents from the jail, and that's where he continued his entire tenure from Madhura from then on. So below 10 years, by 6th, 7th and 8th year, probably the child is in class grade 1, 2 or 3 these days, he manages to dance with girls. And why is it creating so many questions in our minds? And the women who danced with him were just not girls, there were many women as well. There were women. There were women of various ages. There were mothers, there were grandmothers, there were great grandmothers. So they all love to be around Krishna. The philosophical explanation given for Rasa Krida is, see, this is my body. These are my arms, my hands, my fingers. So my fingers constitute the palm, which constitutes the arm, which constitutes the shoulders, that constitute my body. So all these are my body parts. Now these are my fingers. With this I touch this arm. The next door person comes and says, how can you use this hand to touch the other? What question is this, sir? This is my body. One part touches the other. Likewise, Jagat Sarvam Shariram Te, the entire cosmos is the Lord's body. Like how this is my body, the entire cosmos is the Lord's body. So like how I have fingers, I have arms and shoulders, the Lord too has these parts. When I say arms and shoulders, don't assume they are real fingers. The entire cosmos is his body. So if one part touches the other, it should not have problem. Likewise, when I say the cosmos is his body, all of us, I am speaking, you are listening, we all constitute a part of his body, because we are a part of the cosmos. So the women who lived as Gopika Stris were a part of the cosmos, so they were a part of his body. So even if he held their hands and danced, it was as if he was dancing with his own body. They were no different from him, is what philosophers opine. There have been questions as to why Krishna has to be so cruel. Can't he correct people with love? Love can achieve anything in this world. Why should he get so violent by killing all these demons? Is a question. Yes, love as a weapon is very strong. You can convince and impress upon anybody with love. But we have seen in our past experiences, in our very own lives, that there are people who don't succumb to love. There are people who are not impressed with love. Either it's their brought up, or it's their very nature, or it's their karma, that they fall to all antisocial means and are rough, tough, violent, barbaric and uncivilized. If love was the only weapon, I'm sure the world will be a better place, but it isn't. Why would we need a police? Why would we need an army? Why would we need a navy if love can achieve everything? Yes, every effort should be taken for love as a weapon to be used to correct people. Agreed. But we need to understand that there are instances where beyond love, there needs to be a certain amount of force that needs to be used. So anything is achievable to the Lord, but as he chooses to be a spectator, he doesn't wish to condition anybody. Let people act as per their own brought up and their nature. So Krishna did try to use Samadhana, Bheda, Danda. He tried reconciliation. He tried so much to talk to the Kauravas, but they didn't listen. Finally, when no other option was left, then where war came as one of the only solutions. So Krishna's act of killing demons is not to be treated as him being angry or taking to that step at the start itself. No. He did try his level best to showcase love, but when instances went beyond his control, rather than his control, when it was getting tormenting for others, is when he would start using force. Well, there is one incident in Bhagavatam that describes a king called Paundraka Vasudeva. He understood from different quarters that the world was venerating and was awed by a person called Krishna, who was a son of Vasudeva, called Vasudeva. So Krishna, who was called Vasudeva, had enamored the world using his usage of weapons, his lotus-like eyes, his physical characteristics, the way he spoke, the way he dealt with people. So Paundraka Vasudeva wanted to be a mimic, a copy of Krishna, and tell the world that he is the real Krishna. So he started developing some weapons, and those weapons like Shankham and Chakram mimicked the Sudarshana and Panchajanya of Krishna. He summoned Krishna to a war. Krishna said, see, this is not right. I am Krishna. You be the way you are. Why do you want to mimic me? There was a big battle and finally he was dead. So we do come across such instances. Well, certain incidents, as I said at the commencement, are beyond our imagination of how a normal human being will be. That's why I said this is extraordinary. This is the most enjoyable. At times even less comprehensible. One such incident is Krishna's dance on a multi-hooded snake. We have seen so many murtis, so many idols, so many handicrafts on Kalinka Nartana Krishna. But here is a little boy, to get rid of the poison that this poisonous snake was emanating into the waters, thereby making the waters not consumable at all. He wanted to teach this snake a lesson. So he started dancing on the snake. So these are acts which are beyond our understanding. Of course, what we can say is, I am devoted to Krishna, so I am able to relish. To a person who is just a reader may find this as some fairy tale. In whichever case, if it's a fairy tale, read it as a fairy tale and love it. If you're a devotee, you have no other option. You can just fall in love with Krishna and believe all of what is being said. Krishna and his thought of showcasing that he is the cause of everything is proven in a few instances. Let's take the recipient, who is Yashoda, a simple lady who along with her husband was engaged in the business of getting the cows maintained, getting the milk of them, converting them into curds, getting the butter, selling ghee. So that was their profession. So her scope or her exposure of understanding was very limited. And while she was told by one of the friends of Krishna that he was consuming sand, mud, earth, she went and asked him, open your mouth. Isn't this natural for any parent? They'll be worried. Krishna could have simply opened and showed with some grains inside his mouth. He ended up showing the cosmos. So this act also proves Krishna's power to showcase that he is the cause of everything. Of course, the recipient was a Yashoda who was super confused with this. At a later stage, he ends up showing something very similar in his Vishwarupa to Arjuna. And Arjuna, see, the recipient compared to Yashoda, Arjuna had proper tutelage, extremely very good at Dhanur Vidya. He had moved with Krishna so very well, but he was also confused. So Krishna has a meaning to convey here. We as readers, practitioners, researchers, as devotees, various hats that we wear or that we sport, we have this inquisitiveness to understand everything in this world, which is most of the times beyond our control. I want to understand how my mobile phone works. It is in my hands. I want to understand how the LED smart TV in my house works. Well, within my hands, I can read the manual. I want to understand why tsunami occurred, to some extent understandable. I want to understand why tsunami affected certain parts and not others. It's to some extent understandable. So these are all instances where our inquisitiveness will bear results. But there are instances where we dwell very deep, and in our inquisitiveness to know the answer, we start getting arrogant. I know of my grandfather who at the age of 45-50 developed a disorder, the diabetes mellitus. He became a diabetes patient, a sugar patient. The doctor said, you were normal all these days, I think you've been consuming a lot of sweets. So you've got this. My grandfather agrees. My grandmother also gets diabetes. She goes to the same doctor. He asks, have you consumed sweets? She says no. If you've been consumed sweets, have you been tensed all these days? Was there some anxiety in you? She says yes. So that could be the cause. So when we see a disorder, we want to know where the cause is. There is a mother, there is a father, the man and the woman, both of them are perfectly healthy, and there is absolutely no trace of diabetes in both their families. Both of them are very diet conscious, very exercise conscious, fitness freaks. A child is born of them, and when the child is born, the child has type 1 diabetes mellitus. Do we have formulae for this? The father, mother didn't have, there is no family history, right amount of tablets were taken, she exercised well, but why did the child have? This is where we need to understand. To such questions, even doctors of the highest caliber would say, well, we don't have an answer. So not having answers to a few or many questions is perfectly normal. We as human beings are conditioned in one place in the entire cosmos. The solar system that we read about is a speck, it's a small part of the dust. And in that solar system, one of the largest planets is, as far as I know, it's the Jupiter, right? Brihaspati. And Earth is much smaller than the Jupiter. So compared to the Sun, Jupiter is small. Compared to Jupiter, the Earth is small. See, from the cosmos, solar system is a speck. In the solar system, compared to the Sun, Jupiter is small. Compared to the Jupiter, the Earth is small. And in Earth, well, there are many continents. Let's assume I am speaking from the Asian subcontinent. And in Asia, of the many countries, India is one major country. And in India, in the south of India, there is a state called Karnataka. And in Karnataka is a place called Bangalore. And in Bangalore, I am positioned in a small locality, and in that locality are many houses. In those many houses, there is one house, and in that one house, there are many rooms. And in one room, I am seated, there is still a lot of place left. So in this entire cosmos, if solar system is a speck, imagine what will I be? Not even worth mentioning. And here, I want to sit, not even a speck, absolutely negligible, but I want to sit and understand everything that happens in the universe. I want an answer immediately. Not possible. So even if the person is absolutely illiterate like Yashoda, or even if the person is extremely knowledgeable like Arjuna, they couldn't still understand the complete cosmic form of Lord Krishna. Krishna also comes to us, across to us, as a person who cared for animals. We don't see that in many other avatars. In Rama Avatara, he made friends with monkeys, he was benevolent towards squirrels, yes. But in Krishna Avatara, even the simplest of the portraits that you see of Krishna is something where you find a cow and the calf. So his attachment to the cows and the calves was so much that he did not want them to suffer in the floods and the torrential rains that were caused by Indra. He lifted the Govardhana Parvatam, he lifted the mountain. See, again, that's something which is unimaginable. Lifting a mountain, how is that even possible? Well, as I said, as a fairy tale, if you like it, relish it. If you feel it's the real projection as said by our acharyas and preceptors, believe in it. Because this is not done by every normal person. I can't lift. I can't even lift my cell phone like this in one finger. I'm sure I'm going to topple it down. Imagine lifting one entire mountain. There needs to, just not about power alone. It is about some splendor, the divine will that the person possesses. So that is why Krishna becomes a topic of discussion, and it's not me or you. So we have seen Krishna as showing the uncertainty of life by shifting capitals, by shifting his cities, shifting his set of parents, as empowering womanhood, as a person who displays philosophy in every act of his. All this has been said, but where is Krishna beyond this? Because on one side we have dealt with his childhood, very relishable, very interesting, but where does he come after that? He was a very good strategist. See, Rama was very straightforward, a very good administrator, but we don't see him coming up with strategies how to take on the other person and so on. He was very straightforward. A war is a war. I fight right in front of your face. That's how he was. Krishna knew how to win the game. So two incarnations that happened one after the other were distinctly different. Rama was a stickler, was a person who would ensure that every rule was followed. And here we have Krishna who respected rules, but he thought, to achieve my destination, my goal is more important than what path I take. Not that he was unethical or illogical, but he would ensure that his strategy was something that nobody else could have even conceived. We come across Krishna as a master strategist. Of course, prior to the Mahābhārata war and during the Mahābhārata war. Let's take a few instances. Bhishmacharya was one of the overlived, very, very strong and respected warriors from the Kauravas side. To pull him down in the war was an arduous task. And Krishna noticed the first 10 days that went in vain. So that is when he thought of Bhishma's past incident of abducting the princesses of Kashi Desham, Amba, Ambika and Ambalika, of which Amba, through the boons of Lord Shiva and Subramanya, managed to now get into the kingdom of Drupada as a daughter, and then was banished to the forest, who was now Shikhandi, a eunuch. Realizing Bhishma's other vow of never being associated with women from then on, he combined the two and brought Shikhandi into picture and asked Arjuna to shoot arrows at him. To a reader, we may feel that Krishna could have been more straightforward and honest. But Mahābhārata, right since its commencement, has never been right in many instances. So to expect one person to work right and understand that the 99 other people will go wrong is absolutely illogical. So here we have Krishna, who brought Shikhandi into picture to pull Bhishma down, to get Bhishma off the field. Same is the case with Drona. What we see in Dronacharya's incident is Dronacharya had the boon of never falling tired. And Krishna knew for the very fact from his experiences and what Arjuna used to narrate, that Dronacharya was very fond of his son Ashwathama. So to get rid of Dronacharya, the only way was to cause some harm to Ashwathama. So, but by making Pandavas causing harm to Ashwathama wouldn't be right, because after all he's Guru's son. So he managed to hurt an elephant that was fighting from the Kauravas side, which was also called Ashwathama, right? We have names that a lot of us share, and some of the pets in some of the houses have names that we human beings have. So there was an elephant called Ashwathama, and he asked Bhima to topple that down, and he asked Yudhishthira. See, he did not ask Bhima to say a word. He did not ask anybody else to say a word. He asked Yudhishthira to say Ashwathamo Hataha Kunjaraha. Ashwathamo, there by the name Ashwathama, Hataha, has been killed, the elephant. So he replaced the words. And he said, Yudhishthira, you say this. Yudhishthira was a bit hesitant. He said, yes, I'm going to say the truth, but why should I jumble the words? Krishna said, do as I say. And as Yudhishthira said, Ashwathamo, by the name Ashwathama, Hataha, has been dead. The elephant, Kunjaraha, by the time the word elephant could be said by Yudhishthira, Krishna blew a conch in the background, so that that word alone couldn't be heard by Drona. Drona got tired that his son was affected in the war. He sat on the ground. Then Krishna managed to send that son who was born, meant to kill Drona, who was Drupada's son called Drishtadyumna, and he sent him there. So Drona was off the ground. And when he realized that Karna was as powerful as Arjuna and was blessed with divine missiles, he goes to Hastinapura, takes Karna in private and tells him that he is the son of Kunti and it is right time he joins the side of Pandavas because injustice has been meted out to them by the Kauravas. But Karna refuses. Karna promises to fight only in the side of Duryodhana and the Kauravas. That is when Krishna, realizing this, sends his aunt, his father's sister was Kunti, to go to Karna and ask for a boon that he shall not use or shoot the missile of the Nagas, of the snakes, twice. Only once he should be using, because Arjuna was allergic to Nagastram. Krishna knew this. So he thought twice is wrong, once is fine, because that once, Krishna with immense force, when it was being shot at Arjuna by Karna, with immense force Krishna pushed the chariot down. So as the chariot went down, the missile that was supposed to strike the chest of Arjuna struck his crown. So Arjuna was saved. On the other hand, Krishna asks the biological father to Arjuna, who's Indra, to go and seek alms at the doorstep of Karna, asking him for the kavacham and the kundalam, because the kavacham, the shield, the armor what Karna was sporting was very strong enough that no missile could ever kill him. So only if that was taken away will he be able to be killed. So Krishna dispatches Indra there. So everything that goes around in Mahābhārata has a master strategist. Of course, Shakuni was also a strategist in his own means, but we don't speak much of him because his thought process was always negative, was to humiliate Draupadi, humiliate Pandavas, to cheat them, to dupe them. And moreover, even if however negative he was, his ability to strategize would have come into picture had Krishna not existed. When you have the master strategist of millenniums put together in Krishna, where is Shakuni there in the race? And Krishna's ability to manage the best of things in the worst of scenarios, that's an art. When we analyze Krishna, we will be surprised. Krishna could have chosen to speak on Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, which is all an integral part of Bhagavad Gita, much earlier. When Arjuna and Krishna were free, he could have taken him on a walk to a garden close by, kind of given him as many teachings as possible. But where did he choose? When did he choose? It was the first day of the war. Everybody was tensed on both sides. What's going to happen? How many days is this war going to continue? Who's going to win? Who's going to die? How many elephants will we lose? How many horses will we lose? How many soldiers will we lose? How many chariots will be damaged? Everybody was worried about what will be the outcome of the war. And here Arjuna says, I'm not going to fight the war. Krishna could have just said, see, Arjuna, I have been your advisor and good guide and philosopher and friend all this while. I say fight. He could have just raised his voice. Arjuna would have still succumbed to that. But Krishna tells him, what should I do now? Arjuna says, see, I want to see both sides that are fighting, the Kauravas and the Pandavas side, from a middle point. Take me to the middle of the battlefield. The battle had not begun. Everybody was confused. He was taken to the middle of the battlefield. Then he still had confusion. Krishna could have still advised him in short. He now starts delineating about Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. Oh, the number of verses, it comes to about 700. Arjuna at one point in time had forgotten what he had asked. But why did Krishna have to give such a long list? Is because Krishna thought the concept of performing one's karma, duty, coupled with the knowledge associated with it, which is jnana, and later bhakti, has to come from a place which people will always remember, and that's the battlefield. Imagine, the scripture that we revere in the best of philosophies comes from a war field, because Krishna wanted it to be that way. Else we wouldn't, if it is housed in some remote chapter of Mahābhārata, we wouldn't be talking first day of Mahābhārata war. The first thing that was ever delivered was Bhagavad Gita. So he had the art of doing things very, very differently. If we speak of innovation these days, what can get more innovative than this? Krishna's respect for women. On one hand, we could be critical of the number of marriages that he had to undergo. So he married so many women. Is that the way you respect women? Could be a very good counter question. Yes, Krishna being married to so many women has been a point of criticism and ridicule amongst various debaters and scholars. But not every marriage in the past was done out of a carnal interest, an interest out of physical relationship. It was done to even protect one's kingdom, because you had many, many kingdoms around your own kingdom. The only way to save your kingdom from attacks was to either win over the next kingdom or by forging alliances with them. One of the easiest ways to forge an alliance was to accept the princess, the sister of the ruling king of the neighboring kingdom, in marriage. So that was one of those ways. May not be applicable today. See, what is applicable today to nations need not be applicable to the kingdoms and the provinces in the past. Times change, rules change. So here we had Krishna married so many times. Well, there is another instance where Jarasandha had housed so many young virgins, so many women, so many princesses in the jail. And when Jarasandha was killed, again the women wanted security. So though they were aging, they wanted some security. That is when they chose to have Krishna as their husband. Maybe Krishna never had a relationship with them, but to give them a certain security, a status in the life, he had to marry them and give them the comforts. Again, from our point of view today, it may seem quite illogical. We could have said the women could have fended themselves, they were independent. Maybe the women in those days, those particular women whom we were talking about, weren't that way. So what is applicable today need not be applicable tomorrow. What was applicable in the past need not be applicable today. Krishna as a very good friend. We have noticed Rama being very good friends with Guha, Sugriva, Hanuman, Vibhishana. Here Krishna goes one step further. His friendship was filled with mad love. His friendship with Uddhava, his friendship with Sudhama, who's Kuchela. Kuchela was a poor friend of Krishna. Kuchela never wanted to ask any help from Krishna. He thought friendship is pure, pristine. Why should I even ask my friend, even if he's well off? Though upon the insistence of his wife Sushila, Kuchela manages to reach Dwaraka where Krishna lived. He doesn't ask, but he gets everything that his wife had wanted in return. Because Krishna, as a friend, could gauge Sudhama or Kuchela's thought process and grant even without asking. So to friendship, he was the best. To Arjuna, he was the best friend. So there were instances where you could never find an Arjuna without a Krishna or Krishna without an Arjuna. So to determine how deep his friendship is with Arjuna, there is one instance in Mahābhārata where Sanjaya comes as an informer, as the messenger of Dhritarashtra to Krishna to check if he is still ready to come to the side of Kauravas. Krishna wanted to give him a visual treat of what friendship is. So he laid on the bed with his 2 feet on the thighs of Arjuna, who was reclining perpendicular to Krishna, and Arjuna's 2 feet, one of it was held by Draupadi on her thigh and the other was held by Krishna's wife Satyabhama on the thigh. Imagine letting your friend and his wife on the same bed as yours. Unless and until you're confident about the friendship, unless and until you feel good about the friendship, you wouldn't let them even into your bedroom. So this visual sight, Yatra Krishnauscha Krishnascha Satyabhamacha Bhamini, that sight was more than enough for Sanjaya to understand that Krishna and Arjuna were inseparable. So his value to friendship is immense. And his care for citizens, he was a good administrator. When he realized that Jarasandha should be given or should be killed at the hands of Bhima only to give him the credit, all these years while he was fighting Jarasandha lost. The last time Jarasandha, he struck an alliance with a Yavana king. In those days, it is believed Yavanas were Greeks. So there was a king called Kala Yavana. Kala Yavana came along with Jarasandha to fight Krishna. And Krishna manages to run into the cave of a mountain where there was a person called Muchukunda who was lying asleep, slumber. And this Muchukunda, Krishna knew, had a past where Indra had blessed him that if somebody wakes him up from his sleep, the very moment he wakes up and looks at them, that person will get burnt. So Kala Yavana comes into the cave. He assumes Krishna is sleeping because Krishna's upper garment was lying on somebody who was sleeping. He thought Krishna was reclining. He kicks him up. Krishna sees from the back of one of the crevices what was happening. Muchukunda wakes up. He was surprised, who is disturbing me now? He looks at Kala Yavana is dead. So to even manage his foes, his enemies, he had his own art. And of course, as an artist, see, Rama we know as a great archer. He was always with a bow and a quiver of arrows. We know him as the best of the fighters. Here we have seen Krishna dance with the women. We have seen Krishna dance on the snake. And Krishna plays the flute. So, his respect and his talent in arts is very evident. See, Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma, or the religion that was largely practiced and still largely practiced in the Indian subcontinent and the neighboring countries, we have believed that reaching God, attaining God is through various means. One such mean is music and dance. So we have never ever abhorred music and dance. We have in fact relished, respected and promoted art forms. So here is the Almighty who in his incarnation dances, he speaks, he plays the flute, he fights, he nurtures friendship. So all of this, these are characteristics of Krishna. And when we have to think of Krishna more, comes Krishna as the rescuer. His timely assistance, even in his physical absence, his timely assistance to Draupadi and his relationship with Draupadi as a great soulmate friend is commendable. And Krishna goes to that extent where he even protects the fetus that was inside Uttara's womb. So be it Krishna's role in Bhagavatam, where his childhood is described, or Krishna's role later as a king, as a father, as a grandfather, because he was a father to Pradyumna, grandfather to Aniruddha, has been very, very colorful. So, of all the incarnations and anecdotes that we have discussed, if there is one incarnation that has universally impressed upon the philosophers, theologists, poets, dramatists, it is Krishnavatara. And Krishnavatara to us is extremely important, for it has also given us a beautiful treatise on Moksha Shastram, which is called as Bhagavad Gita. There is much more to Krishna. How much can we analyze him? Unless and until we take a book of Bhagavatam and Mahābhāratam and read it for ourselves, how multifaceted Krishna as a character, as an incarnation, as our beloved that he was. Namaste. I am very delighted and indebted to all my friends, well, the word is Sishya, for sincerely attending and relishing the content of our Vedic civilization. I hope this is just the beginning of a long journey we have. So, Bhāratiya Sāra Bodhani level 1, level 2 will come up subsequently, and there will be an intense course on the philosophy, the theology, the secrets of Rāmāyana. Same is the case with Bhagavatam and Mahābhāratam. So it's a journey that as a person who's going to dispense that knowledge, and as a student, a recipient, we'll all travel together. So in this journey, it becomes very important that I share what I know, what I have learned with you. And now that this is going to be a continuous process of dispensing knowledge, admissions, registrations for level 1 of Bhāratiya Sāra Bodhani is open for the subsequent batches. So my ardent request to all my dear Sishyas, the current Sishyas, would be to bring one student, one Sishya, a prospect Sishya from your family, one. If you have 2 or more, good. Tell your cousins, tell your relatives, tell your brothers and sisters. If my English is comprehensible, if the session is not very heavy, I'm sure even your parents and grandparents will like to listen to. As of now, the medium of delivery is English, simple English, Indian accent English. So we have over 20 nationalities listening, being registered Sishyas now. So for the subsequent batches, I would request you to kindly recommend more students to register, and let us travel this long journey together. Namaste.